Hey TCS TV viewers, it's Dave and Evelyn from the Camera Store. Today we're talking about the Nikon Z6.
Yeah, now the Nikon Z6 is Nikon's mid-range, full-frame mirrorless camera that they just brought out, and we've had the opportunity to test it for the last couple weeks. We've put it through the paces to see how it performs in terms of image quality, autofocus, video, and more.
All right, so let's get into it.
Obvious things about the Z6 is it looks exactly the same as the Z7.
And that's not a bad thing. We really enjoyed the fit and finish and the look and feel of the Z7 when we tried it out in New York.
Yeah, it feels good in your hands, very similar to a DSLR. It has some nice features. The buttons and the dials have nice tactile feel to them. I like it overall. It feels good. You don't really think about it when you're shooting.
No. Now, I am usually shooting a larger camera than this, and what I like about this mirrorless camera is that my pinky's not looking for a home, like some other mirrorless cameras in the market, so it feels great.
The only place that I don't like the buttons is on the front where the custom function buttons are. I just found them to be in a little bit of an awkward spot for my fingers.
Yeah, I didn't have a problem with it at all. It worked for me. One thing I do have a beef with though is the articulating screen. I like that it does go up and down and it's versatile that way, but it doesn't flip all the way around. If I'm into shooting selfies, which I've been prone to recently, it doesn't give me that option, and I would kind of like that.
Yeah, now the touchscreen interface on the LCD screen is really nice. The only thing I wish it did is when you bring it up to your eye, you can't actually move your autofocusing points using the LCD screen, but you do have a joystick, which makes me really happy. Now, we have to talk about this, the one lonely card slot. Now, of course, that is an issue for people that are pro photographers that want to be able to back up their work. But to me, the bigger issue is that it's one expensive card slot. In order to put a card in there, you have to buy all new memory cards. And I don't have Ziploc baggies of them lying around my house like I do with SD cards. And I have one that is from 2005 maybe, that's been sitting around my house, and I hate this card because it's really slow. And you know, I can do this with an SD card.
Can't
really
believe you just did that.
Easy. I'm not, but I have an XQD card.
Oh, so dramatic.
This is an XQD card, and I can't break it with my fingers.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the XQD card format. It's much more robust and it just feels better all around. The pins aren't exposed like they are with the SD cards.
Yeah, they're just pricey is the only thing. So it's kind of, there's pros and cons to it, but you know, complaining about it isn't going to magically make another card slot appear, just like Ted Forbes said. But I think for now, Nikon is listening, and hopefully the next iteration will have too.
When Nikon launched the Z6 and the Z7, one thing they talked a lot about was their design of the electronic viewfinder. They put a lot of time and effort into it, and it really shows. It's one of the best electronic viewfinders I've ever used. Yeah,
it's really beautiful. It's a nice smooth viewfinder at 60 Hertz. And so if you look through it, you don't really think about it as being an EVF. It looks almost better than an optical viewfinder in a lot of ways.
Yeah, at 3.69 million pixels, this thing is fantastic.
Yeah, and it's not quite as punchy and contrasty as some of the others on the market. You're just getting a really nice natural look. Nikon put in-body image stabilization in the Z system. So you're getting 5-axis image stabilization with the native lenses or 3-axis image stabilization with the adapted lenses.
Now this is a big advantage. If your style of shooting involves a lot of lower shutter speeds, this is going to really help you out. Your hit rate's going to certainly go up with the stabilization.
Now we were really amazed with the image quality that we were getting out of the files from the 24.5 megapixel backside illuminated CMOS sensor. And yes, it makes a difference. Both the RAWs and JPEGs had great dynamic range and clean ISO even at the high end. The native base ISO is 100, which is not as low as the Z7. You get 64 ISO out of that one, but it is on par with the Sony A7 III. Overall, I like the tone, quality, and look that a full-frame sensor gives you. Plus, I've always enjoyed Nikon's beautiful, balanced color profile and the tonal richness that you get, even if you're converting your photos to monochrome. Let's talk about one of the more controversial topics on this camera.
One card slot.
No, we already talked about one card slot. We're going to talk about autofocus. Now, the Z6 has 273 autofocusing points, which is less than the Z7, but it does have 90% coverage. And I found it's really easy to move your focusing point around if you're doing single shot, and it's also very fast and accurate and works well. But the place where this camera doesn't perform as well is with the continuous tracking autofocus.
Now, the other day we had a chance to take Brendan's dog out to the dog park, and it was fantastic because we had Lexi chasing this tennis ball around, and it was a really aggressive subject running towards us to try and track autofocus. I found it a bit awkward, and I didn't find the consistency was there that I was used to with other camera systems. And I didn't like how it was set up and how I had to do it. With this camera here, you have to put it in, obviously continuous focus, but the auto area autofocus, then you have to push the OK button when you select your subject, and it will track that subject. And it's pretty impressive to kind of watch, but there's a limit to how fast it can track, and it wasn't able to keep up with Lexi.
I do have to say though that this technology is impressive. If you're someone that has a 5 or 6 year old DSLR camera, you're gonna find that this is really amazing. But if we're comparing apples to apples and you're looking at, say, the Sony a7 III, this camera is not gonna perform as well with continuous tracking autofocus. One of the really sexy features on this camera is that you're able to shoot up to 12 frames per second. It's actually faster than the Z7, but there are some limitations. You're not able to adjust your exposure when you're shooting at that high frame rate. If you want to do that, you have to lower it down to about 5 frames per second. So that's kind of the more realistic frame rate that you're going to get if you want to be able to make adjustments.
A very pleasant surprise from Nikon in the Z6 is its ability to take some really good quality video. Not only do we have a headphone jack and a microphone jack incorporated into the design of the body, it's loaded with a ton of other features.
Yeah, one of the most exciting things is that it can continuously autofocus while you're shooting video. Now, the Z6 is actually a better optimized version for video because it's able to super sample the image. Now, the Z7 can't do that because the resolution's too high and wouldn't be able to have that same output. Now, this camera, it can shoot at 422 10-bit to an external HDMI recorder, and so you're getting professional video features in a fairly affordable mirrorless full-frame camera. Oh, and you get N-Log, and not to mention a full sensor readout for shooting 4K, unlike some people. Canon. Overall, I think Nikon did a really good job implementing the first generation of this camera system. Ergonomically, it's really fun to use. I love the feel of it. I think it's really good, and it's a camera that you can feel confident with.
I agree. It's a very easy camera for me to recommend to people, especially at its price point and its feature set and the ability to adapt older Nikon lenses. If you're already a Nikon user, that's a really big bonus.
Yeah, and you'll still feel confident in the weather sealing, the construction, the stability. We did our little splash test on it. It worked out great. And in terms of the battery life, we were getting more than the SEPA rating. And I think depending on how you configure any mirrorless camera, you can really stretch the life of your battery.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed this. The video functionality of it is really nice. It makes guys like me who are not as much into video, much easier to work with and more compelling option for us. It's less intimidating, I guess you could say.
Yeah, well, we hope you guys enjoyed our review of the Z6. Let us know what you think of it by commenting below, and if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe.
And follow us on Instagram. We love getting the likes.
We'll catch you again soon.